Linda. Linda put together the beginnings of that. You remember that email you sent me, the Word attached file? That was the beginning of that, and then John Harrison's.
13 characteristics.
I sent you a bunch of questions on some,
Yeah.
remember I sent you those questions which come out of Accessing Personal Genius? The different frames, identity, understanding, beliefs, values. I sent that to her and I said, how about answering these questions? And that was the beginning of that table. In fact, that was the primary resource. Then I got some of John Harrison. Then I went to all these emails. And also to my notes on some of the therapy I've done. Because I worked with about 7 or 8 people.
Ask one more question. To that table again, you had the 6 columns. Now, that column on intention on the end there, what would happen if that were a row above each of the first 5?
Yeah, I think that would be good because each matrix has intention. So
Then you would find out, yeah.
right.
What you talking about putting?
The 7th matrix there, the intention.
Put another row there and put intention?
Yeah, so, but not a row by itself like the top row, but a row that would be attentions for each of the
Right.
6 pieces.
Right. As it relates.
As it relates to the
Because
world.
each matrix will have its intention.
And then see what the relationship is. Just to
Exactly.
You get maybe more information out of it.
Yeah.
Don't talk to you.
This is why Bob keeps changing things.
Well, that better maps your model.
Exactly. And much better map it from a template standpoint.
Right. So I'm thinking templates.
Yeah.
Forget about the content. Let's see what the templates are.
You have the life story of pain and suffering of a starter up there.
Yeah.
It'd break your heart. I doubt you can see it, can you?
So this may be a good time to look at page 261, organizing the data for your model. We've mentioned that there's numerous steps and stages in the process of modeling. And Bob, you might just want to leave that up there because that's a good illustration of all the data that we go collect. And whenever we start a model, the beginning orientation is we've got to start gathering information. And what I wrote there is that I tend to do it in 1 of 2 ways. Review of the literature of the field, domain or discipline. So when Bob started reading John Harrison's book and then I read it, we start to get the literature of the field, and then questioning, interviewing someone with high degree of expertise in this field. So Bob started working with Linda, trying to find out from the inside, what is this like and what's going on and what are the factors. From that, then we can start pulling out key ingredients, key items, the key variables. What are the factors that make this work? So what are the key elements? What are other things? What are contributing factors? Time, space, any kind of variable. And of these elements, which do I have a sense of are necessary and sufficient and which are peripheral? And this is all in the preparation stage as we are beginning. And then picking out whether we're doing it with someone who has that expertise, a live model, and picking out 1 or 2 people in which to gather that information. As we do that, then some of the questions that you'll want to be concerned about is, where is this person? How can I have access to this person? How can I invite this person in so that I can talk with this person, interview, model, and get the information? And when you even decide that, then where do you want to do it at? At their home, at your office, etc. So the context in which this will, how will it set up? What pre-frames do you want to do? We sat down with the women in leadership, and we spent 2 days, the team did, thinking through all of this. And they decided to go to where the women, so they spent a lot of money flying all over the country. To New York City to interview Candace Pert, to California for Louise Hay, they flew all over and set up this and got permissions to bring in a tape recorder to record everything that's going to be done, permission to make transcriptions of it, and then permission to utilize this information. So the pre-frames, inducing the best and most resourceful states, when we did that, because it was a team effort, appointing someone to be the main questioners, what Jeff and Jennifer Hayes decided to do, Jennifer's background is in quantitative research, and quantifying things. So she wrote up a whole list of quantification type of questions. Jeff Hayes, his expertise is in NLP and modeling from the NLP standpoint, so he wrote up a lot of NLP questions. And so they were the two questioners, they were the two putting a person into state, and then they had other people watching and looking for certain things and calibrating, as well as writing down other questions and sending to them and staying out of the process, but observing. So if the living expert, where and when and the conditions, the relationship with that expert, the personal, professional arrangements, the states that you want to be working with, the materials, etc. So those will be some of the facets of the beginning stage of any modeling process. Clarifying the structure and the purpose of the modeling. This helps us to have a well-formed outcome. What skill or expertise or behavior do I want to model? What's the purpose of formalizing this model? Why do I want to do that? Will I be copying an unconscious competence, improving it, or designing a new one? Who will I model? How will I find and relate the persons or structures to be modeled? What criteria will I select? And who will the model be for? So these are all preparation type of questions and awarenesses as we orient ourselves for going after and identifying the source. Identifying the overall structures first. Having a general sense of the territory of this land is important. So creating a tentative model by sequencing the materials that you have at this point in time, and having a beginning and ending, and so this will be establishing our SR parameters, where we'll begin, where we'll end, how long of a piece of behavior or skill or process. The wealth building, I put into the format of a 10-year period, the stages. Robert Allen, in his work Creating Wealth and No Money Down in the 80s, No Money Down in the 90s, his work in real estate, he talks about 4 stages of wealth building. And I really liked his stages, so I incorporated those basic stages in that process. And so identifying the stages and therefore the time element, and being able to zoom in at different stages, because you might want to model different people at different stages who handle those stages better than the key parts and stages and facets. The unconscious uptake state, or stage, involves taking second position to the person and building up our initial intuitives about the skills. This is where if we can find the person in action doing it, we can use that. Here we use mirroring and mimicking to approximate the sense of the skills. Rather than seeking to understand, here we are seeking to experience. Here we use a know-nothing frame, step out of our assumptions, and use an unbiased attitude as possible to see what it would be like if we can be that person. Here, the skill and the strategy of deep trance identification becomes useful. Has everybody had the experience of playing with deep trance identification? Identifying with someone. Well, that might be something to do in the next few days. We could do that on the trance days. This is where you go into a nice relaxed state, and you're thinking about somebody that you would like to receive some of their skills, their states, their experiences, and while in the trance state, to identify with, to recognize, to understand, to think about certain places that you've seen and experienced them, and then at a certain point, when you're ready, stepping in and being them. So it's second position, but we call it deep trance identification. Milton Erickson did a lot of deep trance identification, and John and Richard talk in some of their works about doing that with Milton, using trance, because then the sensors, we release the sensors, we're more open, as well as the unconscious part of our mind, the unconscious uptake, can also pick up things that consciously we had screened out. So deep trance identification then becomes very useful. My guess is Robin Williams is just absolutely phenomenal naturally, and that's how he can learn to do other voices, other characters, because at some level he just knows naturally deep trance identification. And as all trance phenomenon, anything you can do in trance, you can do in the waking state. what we do in the waking state, we can do in trance. I mean, these are not that disparate of states. So the unconscious uptake is getting around an expert and just taking it in. This is how we learn so many of our skills. When a little boy starts to play baseball, how many little boys get the rule book? That's not how we learn it. We behave as if the rules are real, and we only listen to the rules or someone yells a rule at us. When we violate it, we just unconsciously kind of do an uptake of run to first, run to second, you can steal second, steal home, slide. And we behave as if there are rules without studying the rules. And sometimes we watch someone who can really hit, and we watch how they stand, we watch how they breathe, watch what they do, and we step in there, and it's a deep trance identification type of thing. It's second position, and when we do it more fully, it can be deep trance identification. So that's the unconscious uptake. And that's where, if we think we can model with our conscious mind only, so we use both. We are going to make it explicit, but sometimes I can make it more explicit by identifying with it and then making that explicit because it's new and different, and maybe I can put it into words, whereas the expert is just so unconscious, and the toad is now just one piece. Once we have this preparation done, once you've decided what you're going to do, where you're going to do, what you're going to do it for, what you want, and the processes, then the initial model in mind. We create a tentative model, format, understand, and begin testing it against the literature, case studies, interviews. That's the stage that Bob's at right now with his modeling of the stuttering. He's testing it, seeing where the limits are, and seeing what works. He's pushing it so that he can identify what's absolutely necessary and sufficient, and what's accidental, what's peripheral, what's an embellishment, and pushing it. So we've got that tentative model, and now we're testing. And at the testing phase, you're also trying to disprove your own model. Now that's a tough one for a lot of us. You know, we just gave birth to a baby, and now we're going to see where it doesn't work. And I can tell you that often I've created 2 or 3 things and started testing it, and had to start all over.
This one's going to work, though.
Those other this works.
That's nailed.
That dog will hunt.
That dog will hunt.
What did he say?
That dog will hunt.
Good for a city boy.
That dog will hunt. Now you have to take that to Nigeria and Mexico.
That works Mexico City, Omar. That dog will hunt.
We're trying to figure out what it means.
It means when you're after a rabbit, go get that beagle, little kitty. And when you're after that pheasant, go get that setter, and he'll get it.
I guess we don't find that word in the dictionary.
Yeah. Go get that blue tick to get that coon. Blue tick hound dog to get that coon. No, triggering old memories in my head. I'm getting homesick. A long time.
We're going to take care of you this evening.
I don't want to hear today. You don't know what you're going to do to me.
I don't think so.
I'm going to be put on stage. Yeah, I'm having put on my uninsolubility frame. I've been working all day to do that. I'll say no more.
Well, the questions we're asking at this stage is, what am I missing? What else is there? What does this model not explain? What else could we, how else could we formulate this understanding? Where are my blind spots? The blind spots of this paradigm. And so we're looking for its weaknesses and its extent and where it can go. And from that standpoint, no model can do everything. And nor should we expect it to do everything. It can just do some things. And in fact, part of good modeling is being able to say, this will do this and this and this in this context and that context, but it's not going to do everything. So every NLP model, every neurosemantic model will work for some things and not for other things. And part of the spirit of exploration and discovery is testing it and pushing it and see what will work for and what it won't. The multiple description stage is creating several different descriptions of the skill, using descriptions from first, second, third positions. The more double, triple descriptions we can create of the pattern, the more complete we can make that model, and even other descriptions of the model. One of the things I really enjoy doing is taking away all the diagrams and all the awarenesses and someone just asking me about it and just starting afresh. Because a lot of times I'll come up with much better diagrams. And so even using the know-nothing frame or the let me start afresh kind of frame, and this is where I have met so many people in NLP who've got something. And I said, well, tell me. I had to, this is the truth. In two times this year, someone has made me sworn to secrecy. I'll tell it to you if you swear to secrecy. I'm not going to go exploit this thing. And so they go around afraid everybody's going to steal from them. Of course, what happens is they're not getting brainstorming and teasing and discovering and mindstorming and getting more ideas because they're operating in such fear. And so it seems to me a much more abundant attitude is just go tell as many people as you can.
Give it to Bob, you'll put it on the internet.
even when it's half-baked.
What do you mean for that to go up there?
The art of decomposing a process, modeling involves taking things apart, teasing out the higher levels, understanding its motivations, agendas, and dynamics. And so what are the micro-level behaviors involved? What are the contextual environmental anchors involved? What are the feedback processes? Other calibration tools and models? And so just asking those kinds of questions as well as we are refining it, going through steps and stages again and again. When you write a book, I always recommend at least 6 drafts. At least 6 drafts. And in our writing workshop, we go through what you draft each time for, because there's at least 6 different kinds of things that you can draft it for. The logic of it, the compellingness of it, the enfleshment of stories throughout. So we keep editing it and editing it. A long time before I ever do any checking typos or proofing. If you do that, you can kill the very spirit of developing it. So we keep drafting and drafting. Same thing with any other kind of a model. Keep refining it until we get to the stage where we're ready to do some formatting and replicating. Once we have a structure and we begin testing with ourselves and others to see what we have and if it's sufficient to replicate the same kind of level of expertise. So this is where Bob and I are with regard to the stuttering, finding things that can replicate and create a sense of fluency. And what are the interventions and how to come up and how to think of interventions. And we shared a few of them this morning. And so a lot of times we just try things. I've tried just simple anchoring a state of stuttering and anchoring a state of relaxation and collapsing the two together to see what happens. I did that with the inability to pee the other day. Think of a time when you were really peeing.
Excuse me.
Water behind the dam yearns for the sea.
Water pistols every 1 on 3.
In the subtraction process, sorting out everything that's absolutely essential to the working of a model to create this skill or behavior, eliminating the things that are extraneous, clarifying and defining the steps and the stages, and systematically leaving everything out, getting down to bare bones. Once we know that, then we can start designing and redesigning and developing a model. So there's a summary, and I think Bob has a PowerPoint of this summary of the pieces of modeling, and we even got this diagram here, this chart from the original focus and the questions and the experts to the information gathering to developing a model and getting a model in mind and the rules and the mechanisms, the variables, to creating a model and then testing it. And of course there's going to be some looping around in there as we put all of that together. So this is, to some extent, the step-by-step process of putting together a modeling project. And so you can see, when you see that, you know that modeling is much more than just strategy work. Strategy work is obviously a big part of it and the foundation of it, gathering information. But it involves much more than that. And then finding ways to visually create a visual digital, a diagram of the thing, whether it's a flow chart, whether it's whatever it is, that allows us to have a sense of that.
When were you going to start this book?
Oh, okay. So, yeah, thank you for bringing that up. Part of modeling will be as we go to the literature and look at what people have written, and this helps us not to reinvent the wheel, but to find really the state of knowledge of a field and what people know and what people have said, maybe case studies, different kinds of things like that. And so the process of sucking information, sucking metaphors, sucking just all kinds of data from a book that we can utilize in our modeling project. This goes to how do you read a book for that kind of information. And with stage 3 there, that model in mind, that tentative model, or even stage 1, being really clear, what am I looking for? What do I want? So oftentimes I've read a book and I'll go back because I know there's valuable information here, maybe case studies or maybe that kind of information, and I'll go there with just that in mind. What does this book say about whatever it is that I'm looking for? And I always write in the back of my books and create different indexes. So I might create an index to that, or I might have a pad of paper that I'm looking for something in specifically. So I would suggest one of my recommendations for reading and notating and indexing things is that any book you read, create your own index at the back. For one thing, when you go, now where did I read that at? You'll have a way to find those pages. And if there's certain areas of things of interest to you, if selling is of interest, you read a book, just one little paragraph on selling, index that somewhere. Or persuasion, or whatever it is that if it's education, if it's attention deficit, anytime you read anything that has anything to do with that, and those words may not be used, that's why the book's index may not be sufficient, and creating your own index. Part of, I think, good modeling is attributing to sources and being able to recognize sources. That's not only for your own benefit and others, but it also creates credibility. Because then you can identify, here's the experts of the field, here's what they've said, this is what they've offered, and here's the next step, or here's something else that we can do with regard to that. And so reading with a purpose in mind or interest in mind, and then indexing. With regard to reading any authors, my recommendation always is to stay with the book until you're done with it, and don't go jumping around. Because if you go jumping around, a lot of times then you can't remember who wrote that, where was that, and it starts mixing things. But if you stay, and also sometimes outline the argument, what is the discussion, what is the presentation, what is the set of evidences that this person argues for, so that you have clarity as to what's being said. It seems to me that you'll have much better memory, much better retention, much more clarity. With some books and with some authors, and I'm certainly not in this category, that when you read, sometimes you don't get it the first time.
A little feedback there.
So just keep reading, just notice that, and then read it the second time. When I did not understand Science and Sanity really very much the first time through those 830 pages. But I remember the day I was at Burger King here in town, and I closed the 830 pages and I turned it over. Now I'm ready. So I read it the second time. And when you read good books that has lots of solid information that's really packed, I always read a book twice. And I won't go on to another one until I've done it twice. it's amazing how much you'll pick up the second time from a well-written book.
Well, you'll have 2 days training in meta programs and 2 days training in mind line. I recommend a minimum of 2, possibly 3 readings of figuring out people and mind lines.
They could buy 3 copies and read it with this in mind.
Good idea.
3 different indexes.
Before, I don't now, but the first 2 or 3 years that I taught figuring out people and mind lines, I reread each book before I taught. I don't now, but I reviewed. But I mean, I totally read it again before I taught it. It took me 2 or 3 years before I really felt comfortable that I really knew it. And still today, even before when we go through it later on, I'll be going back reviewing it before I come down here. There's a lot of material.
So this proves that you can write a book and not even know everything in it.
Not consciously. I had a little help in those 2 books. Not much, but a little.
Yeah.
There's 2 gems.
So anything else with regard to that?
Well, yeah, and that's for a particular subject, but I thought also about modeling people, and you talked about biographies and things like that. So if I want to take a category of people, and I want, because I don't have access to those people, I want to model them through literature or other things that I can find.
Yeah. And Robert Dilts is a great example of that, what he did with Sigmund Freud's writings and Aristotle's and several other people that he's modeled along that line, that he got that information from their writings. And I've done that to some extent with some people, Bateson and Korzybski. But it is just fascinating to read a biography from the standpoint of looking for states, looking for meta-states, looking for beliefs, looking for the structure of what is said kind of above and beyond the content of the stories. And in that sense, reading, we would read and reread along that line. So when I read the 2 or 3 Hitler biographies and Mein Kampf and started looking at it from that standpoint, then once again, you're not caught up in that content, but you're really looking for the structure of how that works.
As a Christian, one of the greatest, my first NLP practitioner, minister, and he told me, he said, go read the Gospels, that's the life of Jesus, Matthew, Mark, and Luke, the synoptics, but don't look for content, just throw the content away and read for structure. And that revolutionized my belief system about me being who I claim to be. And I started seeing things, and I've got a doctorate in that stuff. I started seeing things I've never seen before. And not what he said, but how he lived. And how he said what he said. And so that's the same way you can go to any, if you're going to Walt Disney or Korzybski, looking for the structure. And that's where the difference, it makes a difference, I think.
What I would like to do is specifically is declare a new niche in the market and get to know the profile of those people in that market so that I can approach them.
Excellent. Yeah. So we can use modeling to model and create a profile of people in a certain market and how they think, how they feel, what they want, their decision strategies, their buying strategies, their convincer strategies. And so we profile that, and so we can model in order to know how to enter into a market and to be effective in that particular market. And so there may be books that would describe the demographics or the psychographics of people in that particular area. Anything else about the process of how to put a modeling project together? I would recommend modeling things that you'd like to have, modeling things that you care about, finding the strategy and the structure of it, because then you'll have more heart in it, more interest in it, more passion in it, and then when you can apply to self, then you've got a great story. Look at what it's done for me. And so modeling something that's really valuable for your own self. I told you some of the reasons why I started modeling the resilience and why it was important to me. And with regard to clients and doing things, kind of the same kind of thing, I wanted to help my clients. I wanted to have training things where people wouldn't get put off, and I would know how to help them to have bounce inside them. And so doing things of importance to your own self, and then applying to yourself to where you have that sense of, I can get knocked down, but I'm back. And so when we apply it to ourselves, then the congruency and the alignment of yourself with whatever it is that you're doing. So the first, the thing I wanted with wealth building was I want to find out how to do that. I'd like to become financially independent. When I started the selling thing, I'd like to know really an excellent strategy for how do you sell effectively and in a way that's respecting people and that honors them but is persuasional and that assists them in making great decisions and feeling convinced about it, so that in selling there's that kind of excellence. So where is something that you would really like and need in your life? And start modeling somebody who does it. It might be just a real short project, but just finding those pieces that really support your own personal mastery.
Have you thought about putting together like the website with Linda with Stuttering, something where people who are interested in modeling different things could get together apart from the world view and just compare notes on and get feedback on the models that they're working on, different models on,
What we're doing right now is the trainers e-group for that, and we're encouraging the trainers to use that particular e-group for that. Other than that, if you get on the neurosemantic e-group and just say that, and just say, here's something I'm interested in, anybody out there, and give your private email address to have somebody feedback.
I threw out an invitation to anyone who wants to model anything to come into my group. And people have done that.
Your own e-group?
No. Well, the ones we meet every week.
So people in the D.C. area.
Yeah.
So people in the D.C. area, and you guys have done that time and time again.
It's easy enough to set up an e-group. I mean, you can go to Yahoo and set one up, a minute or two, and you got it. It's just a matter of finding out who's interested and then setting them up.
So if somebody's interested in that and would like to do that, Linda has done it with neurosemantic stuttering e-group. So if somebody would like to do neurosemantic modeling group.
I'd like to do that if anybody is interested.
Carl and Thomas, they're going to be, they're studying the website, and they know what they're doing. They're over.
We've set up many e-groups. We set up wealth building. We set up selling. We set up several. And unless someone is in charge and unless someone is passionate about it and always stimulating, like what Linda's doing with hers, it doesn't work. Yeah. It won't work.
It's the same strategy we got on the modeling last night with this 17-year NLP group. You had the one passionate, and there he is.
That's the reason why it works.
There's the reason why it works.
If somebody did that, could we have access to the email list that you have, to send out invitations?
It'd be easy to just then go to the e-group, to the neurosemantic e-group. It has about 2,000, and just put out an announcement. We're starting this e-group, and here's how you can sign up.
That presupposes everybody's in the meeting.
If you have an interest,
Carl may have that. Carl?
What we'll probably do is just set up a program called Mailman and just set up some special interest groups, and whoever wants to be the moderator of that group, if they want to moderate a group, it's very simple. You can go and check, I want to digest, I want to get whatever I want, and then people can set up groups as they want and let them die down if they want, and we can just have stats for you, so you can have a look and see which has the most activity and you can join it or what. It's very simple. So in the next couple of weeks we'll have that up on the Neurosemantics website.
That will be done through the website. It won't be done through Yahoo.
No, not through Yahoo.
You'll manage all that.
It's something called Mailman. It's an open source
So we'll do away with all the ads and all that stuff.
Yes.
Hallelujah.
No more waiting.
I really like the way Linda has been monitoring it, because she puts lots of emails together, so I don't have 15 coming at me, but I got one that has all these different posts.
That's called a digest.
A digest.
And what we'll do as well is we'll set up an archive, so then you can go and search for things through the archive So you have a year's archive, so you can see how it's been developing. Very simple.
You did a stuttering.
Is that us too?
Sure.
So you had stuttering list. He's done this.
It takes a lot of time to put together a digest, set the links, and get that. All right.
So if people want to sign up, I can just tell them to go.
It already says on the website.
Great. Well, that saves us a lot of work.
Well, let's take a 10-minute break. When we come back, we will get the strategy for taking insult. First of all, we need to know, how do we take insult? Do you have the ability to feel bad and put down and scalded and insulted and have a sense of your dignity, your respect violated? So first we need to get that strategy. Does everybody here have the requisite ability to take insult and feel bad? None of these have elbow things. So we want to find out, how does that work? Because that is a skill, to take insult. And so on 210 at the very top, elicit a strategy for taking insult. Identify a referent experience. Think of a time when someone said something, did something, rolled their eyes, used a tone of voice, that you felt bad. Because here's stimulus, here's response. We want to find out how that works. And then as you do that strategy elicitation, and you know how to do strategy elicitation, you get that referent, and then track the thinking of the mind and the emotions to find out, how does that work? Teach me how do you do that? And as you do, check for caring what the other person thinks, lack or weakness of personal boundaries, lack of a strong sense of self or confidence to handle things, lack of a strong sense of values or vision, or the confusion between map and territory. Those will probably be key facets. But very quickly, just 5 minutes each, turn to a partner, and just where you are, because this is not going to take very long to find that strategy. It'll work like a synesthesia, stimulus response. So it's a quick, streamlined strategy, but we'll tease it apart to find out, how do you do that? And as you do that, it will start changing it, as you find out that structure, to what can you and do you, have you taken insult? And so what is the triggers? And make a list of some of those triggers, because we'll use that as we build uninsultability. But first of all, how to take an insult, how to feel put down, how to feel your dignity is somehow violated. Because this is a conceptual state, and we want to get the strategy. So if you'll just find a partner and write down the strategy, and we'll go from there. So what are some of the facets of the strategies? So in terms of the trigger, the tone. So what do you do with that tone when you bring it in?
I felt like I was being fussed at.
Feel like I'm being
Fussed at.
okay. So scolded, insulted. So how do you do that? How do you know that it's being scolded?
Because of the tone in which they used. And it
So
felt
how
that
do you
way.
give it that meaning? Is it you represent it somehow?
Anyone who's not talking nice is fussing. Doesn't have a nice tone of voice.
Not talking nice. So how do you bring it in and make it something about yourself?
What did I say? I had not talking nice. They're fussing at me. I'm feel like a little child.
They're fussing at me. I feel like a little child.
So I'm not going to listen.
So I'm not going to listen.
I act it like
Okay. So somehow it gets in. Somehow it gets all the way into your heart, and somehow or another you go into a state of little child when they're fussing at you, and then of course your intention is, I'm not going to listen to you. Okay. So we understand a little bit of that strategy, that part of the strategy is that there's no sense of boundaries, it just comes right in. Somehow or another there's personalizing. Somehow or another it induces regressive state. and then it elicits another response. So that's one style of strategy. Anybody have a different strategy for how to feel insulted? Okay, Larry?
Because I have that external one, the trigger, then there's AD, some thinking about what's happening. And then I go in that feeling, and then there's part of, again, an AD, what's happening, the judging part, and then it comes right out in the feeling I have to do something.
So the first, what is that, is more just exploring what is that. The second, the shock. The second one is a sense of what is that, more of a judgment. And the feeling is?
I do something, when I judge it, it's not important enough, I can stay inside, I don't act, don't do anything, just inside my body. And the second is, it's important, I do something.
Okay. So is it a pleasant feeling?
Which one?
The state when you're feeling insulted?
No.
So what are you feeling?
Out, I must show something. I must
show something.
Should go out.
So that's a determination of doing something. What do you feel? Annoyed?
Yes.
Okay.
Irritated.
Misunderstood. So some of these are states, some are meta states. Feeling misunderstood is really a meta state. Feeling judged or feeling like I'm being treated like a child, these are meta states. So we really don't know the state, except it's probably some kind of irritation, upset, threat. Okay. And then our response back. So once again, somehow it gets in and we personalize it.
Ask me the question.
How do you take insult?
I feel it. I feel hot. Flush.
Okay, so there's a trigger, and all of a sudden you're feeling that. How do you create that feeling?
I create it. I don't know. It's like magic.
That's that synesthesia. That response. We've got to tease out.
Well, I've teased it out. I know what I do now. I thought about it. It constellates prior experiences where I had low self-esteem.
So somehow it triggers again a memory, a regressive state. So what do you have to think to have that memory? What memories do you bring that reminds you of?
I suppose it would be times when I felt inadequate.
Okay. So here's the personalizing, and personalizing by using a history frame of I remember this. And so this reminds me of that. So this triggers this. When this goes off, then I go into inadequate state. And of course, inadequate state is more of a meta feeling. And so the feeling itself is going to feel threatened, upset, some primary state, tension, stress, and then it comes out as whatever comes out. Other facets of the strategy, how to take insult. How to feel put down?
Well, I think sometimes like time. Someone doesn't meet this window of 15 minutes, that it means I'm not important. And I take insult.
Okay. So you can also set the frame, I'm not important. And that's based upon a time frame?
Well, yeah, I allow 15-minute windows.
Okay. Other strategies for feeling put down, insulted? Okay.
I don't know particularly about the strategy, but it seems that things that insult me is when someone says something that touches an area where I have self-contempt.
Okay. Touches an area where you have self-contempt. So you're insulting yourself,
right.
And then you're waiting around for an opportunity to refill that. Okay. So it's already ready to be activated. I just need, some reason to feel bad.
Somebody go ahead and
slap me. Okay. So oftentimes the strategy involves the self-judging, the self-insulting, and at some level, to take insult, we have to insult ourselves. that what they say, we say, okay, I'll say the same thing. And maybe we even amplify it.
Or I believe that.
Or just take it and say, I'll confirm that and believe that. Okay?
Oh, no, that you already have believed that.
I have believed that, so this reminds me. So a lot of the strategies will involve remembering and then regressing to an earlier time or place when I know this one. I've been here before. Anybody have anything else in part of the strategy for feeling put down, disrespected, insulted? So defensive is going to be what's going to come out, and we're defensive because feel violated. So there's no boundary, and so now I'm going to put up the boundary because of a sense of violation. So there has to be a sense of threat. And one of the questions is, what do you feel threatened about? How do you feel threatened? Threatened about what? Threatened in what way? And it's almost always going to be a psychological threat, not a physical threat, because that's a different thing. But there's a psychological threat. My image is threatened. My sense of relationship is threatened. My peace is threatened. My sense of the future, my dignity is threatened. So these psychological concepts are threatened by whatever occurs, however many triggers there may be. Anybody else?
What about value? My values.
So a value can be threatened. I really value this or that. It may be the tone of voice. I value a nice tone of voice, and this violates that which I want and expect. So our expectations can be violated. I didn't expect this from you. So that may be but somehow a sense of violation, a sense of endangerment. Something is endangered. That's why we feel angry, frustrated, tense, stressed, and get defensive. Or if we just validate it, say, yes, this really is true. And then we feel down, we feel sad, we feel exposed, we feel vulnerable. So a lot of primary state feelings, but because of these meta-level structures. So that's why suggesting check these kind of features. What may be threatened is the sense of that you have of you in their eyes. What do you now think of me? Especially when you say this, do this, talk this way. Or lack of personal boundaries. So that may be part of the strategy because it gets in, so somehow it's not kept out as, well, this is their talk, their ideas, their opinion, their view, their gestures, their tone, their rolling of the eyes. Somehow we personalize. So lack of personal boundaries, lack of a strong sense of self and confidence, and so we're ready to insult ourselves. Lack of a strong sense of values or visions, or maybe our vision of our future is threatened or endangered in some way. And then, of course, we're not making the distinction between the map and the territory. This is my map, that's their map. Just because they say it doesn't make it real. But somehow that's confused, and to hear it, we immediately bring it in. So if we're going to create uninsultability, we have to deal with these things. And that's why it's important to identify these facets, because if we know how the system works to create insult and disrespect, then we'll have to do something opposite. And looking at this diagram, we have some sense of some of the first things to do. What's the first thing, or one of the most important things to do? Okay, so we'll do the very thing we did the other day, get a sense of self, so a strong sense of me, and everything out there is not me, and creating those boundaries so that it doesn't get in, it doesn't get personalized. So to stop the personalization is probably the first and maybe the most important thing of all, so that it stays out there and we can deal with it for whatever it is, instead of bringing it in. Once we get in, it gets in, and we feel threatened, then we're going to go into that state and defensive and not in a good place because we feel disrespected, we feel hurt, we feel violated, all the neurology gets going. So the very first thing, it seems to me, is getting some good boundaries up and separating me and not me, and making the distinction of this map and my map, and recognizing that these are just maps of that. What's another important facet we'll have to do in order to metastate ourselves to create this gestalt of uninsultable?
View it as feedback.
Okay, so we could frame all of this, put a frame around ourselves that this is just feedback. So that'd be a good one. One of the things that makes for insult and disrespect and feeling hurt and violated is we care. So some people try not to care. But then, well, you may be uninsultable, but you're also apathetic. So somehow we need to still have our heart and care, but not care so much that we let it ruin our day or control our state or make us. So we want to care, but have limits even on our care. But I care what you say and think and feel and do. I care about your opinion, but your opinion is yours. So care without control.
Responsibility for and to.
So responsibility for and to helps to do that. Responsible for, responsible to. So care without control then maybe become a frame that I might want to put myself upon myself so that I still care, but I don't need to control. So I care about your opinion. I want your opinion, but I don't need it. So the difference between want and need. I want to succeed, but I don't need to. And that breaks up that obsessive-compulsive polarizing. So what else? What else do we need as far as a menu list of some things that help us to deal with this hurt and disrespect so that I can stay and keep my dignity, keep my sense of respect, my sense of self, a strong sense of self, self-esteem. I can maintain all that even while this is going on. What do you need?
If they're given, you got that. If they are given.
So maybe one of the other frames that we'll set around ourselves is that sense of self-esteem is just unconditionally given. I don't have to prove it. I don't have to demonstrate it. It's a given. So looking upon whatever this is, listening to that tone, hearing those words, and recognizing that that has nothing to do with my self-value, esteem, dignity, making that distinction. In the workbook, I added a few other things there with regard to uninsultability, boundaries, sense of self, beliefs about external things. Nothing external to me is me, or defines me, or controls my day, or determines my state, but it's just external things, words and actions. What frames of meaning can we put upon insults and put-downs and reputation and honor so that can occur without us going into a negative state? So as feedback, how else can we reframe it? I'll take that in consideration. It's a gift, and you can receive the gift, and you can say, no, thank you. So I'll take that in consideration.
I think so very often it happens that very hurtful ones occur at a time when someone we love is very angry at us. And they've been observing us for a while and seeing things about us, but didn't want to hurt our feelings. But now all of a sudden that boundary's gone, and they let them blast.
Yeah.
So it becomes like an anchor kind of. If somebody says something bad about you, then you're going to get really hurt because that's the way it's been before.
Okay.
Because that's usually where it occurs in this kind of situation.
Okay.
So then we're more vulnerable, I think, to people that we don't even love so much.
Okay. So part of it is recognizing, especially when someone finds a fault that has some grain of truth in it, or maybe a lot of grains of truth within it, and it touches us. Are we okay with our fallibility? Are we okay identifying the fact we made a mistake, we made an error, we misbehaved, we misspoke? So maybe one of the other frames is the sense of being fallible, being gloriously fallible, being wonderfully fallible. We really don't have any other choice anyway, so might as well embrace it. So we embrace our fallibility, and if we're okay with it, when it comes, we can have the feeling of, that's all you can see, and a sense of relief that I'm just fallible. And of course, and then we have a better relationship to being wrong. What is your relationship to being wrong as a concept? Are you okay to be wrong?
Well, it shows my humanness.
Yeah, this is just our humanness, and it's facet of it. And so just notice and give yourself permission. I give myself permission to be wrong, and to say so, and to be aware of it, and to let others say so, and be aware of it. That's where it may be a little tougher there, but I give ourselves permission. See what dragon comes out. I give myself permission to be misunderstood.
That was interesting feedback. Do you have any more?
Do you have it? That was interesting feedback. Do you have some more? Let me have it.
Well, thank you for sharing enough for sharing that with me.
Thank you for caring enough for sharing that with me. So there's ways of framing that so that we're okay with it. But at the very, very heart is that ability just to know that we're fallible and to be okay with being wrong. And how easily can you say, I was wrong? How easily can you acknowledge that, and it's okay that you're imperfect. So that'll help me to be uninsultable. It's awful hard to insult someone who fully knows that they're pretty fallible and are okay with it. Because then I can receive that and truly thank the person or deal with it for whatever it is. So fallibility. So that's the frames of meaning about these things, and the map territory distinction. The other thing about the map territory distinction is the realization that none of this is real. At best, it is an accurate map and opinion of someone else. At worst, it's just a really distorted map of someone else. But whatever it is, it's still a map and still someone's opinion. And if I have enough respect that people have the right to their opinions, and we can battle it out a little bit, but if I can't influence or persuade them, that I'm okay with them having the right to think ill of me, because it's really none of my business what they think of me, because it's their thoughts, their feelings, their state.
One of the things I do with some of the people that I run into is sometimes they're drunk, and it's like they start, hey, he's drunk, We do that all the time. Staff. Hey, he's drunk.
He's drunk.
Just set that frame.
So we can take it into account. We can take the state that they're in into account. And most of the time when we get criticized in a hurtful way, it's usually because they're in a grumpy mood. So they'll be okay when they have a nap. Just take that attitude. You're just being...
Missed your Prozac today.
Yeah, missed your Prozac today, huh? You'll chill out later.
Being able to accept that other people also are fallible and have...
Other people are also fallible. And this enables us to not take it so serious. And isn't it seriousness that enables us to go into that insult state? So that's part of the strategy. You've got to take it serious. When you take it playful, when you take it in a lighthearted way, take consideration of their state, then it's easier to consider.
I've managed to stop the flow of the abuse before by going, oh, wow, would you teach me to be perfect like you?
You would have to have so much rapport. Yeah, are you in slapping range? Sometimes we can interrupt it, and of course that can be an interrupt. But the danger thing is if we send back a little bit of that, and it can start escalating, and then it. Yeah. Maybe some more samplings.
Still living. That's all right, Mike. You have the right to be wrong.
Right. Well, and indeed.
Yeah, they could very well.
In terms of diffusing, if someone is really angry in diffusing, that we help them to ventilate, knowing that they're just ventilating. They're just at their threshold. So somebody's talking about families that they just get to a place where they can't stand anymore, and then they blow. They're at threshold, and what they're saying are angry words, and it is intended to hurt. Because we do the same thing. We get to the place where I can't stand it anymore, and we walked on eggshells enough, and now we can't stand anymore, so now we're letting it rip. And we do say hurtful things. And so one way of protecting ourselves is to say when it's small and manageable rather than waiting until, and inviting it when it's small and manageable. So there's other processes that could come into all of this.
One I used to use many years ago, when the kids would get angry, I say, gee, I want to rate that 4 on a scale to 10. Let's see if you can raise it all the way up to a 10 now.
In the insults they're offering you?
Yeah, insults or anything. The feelings, but I say,
Yeah.
just accept them, and that dog breaks it right there.
The danger of pushing it away too quickly is we haven't heard. And if we haven't heard, they will feel misunderstood and not heard, and that's why it'll escalate. So that's why, for the most part, we want to be uninsultable. Well, this sounds important to you. Tell me more. How else do you think I've not done something that's appropriate or proper? And we just invite it because we're uninsultable. Because we're open to our fallibility if there is something in there, and there's usually a grain of truth. Much as we hate to admit, there's usually a grain of truth. I've never been criticized for being from Mars. You know, that was so off the wall.
It's the first time for everything.
But there's always a first time for everything. I'm usually criticized for coming on too strong. I'm usually criticized for something that is one of my strengths overdone. I'm usually not even criticized for my weaknesses. I'm criticized for my strengths overdone or used in an inappropriate way. So I'm usually criticized for misspelling and for typos. I'm usually, criticized for, and there's a grain of truth in there. Well, there's a whole bunch of grains of truth in there. Because most of the things that come up to us, there is some feedback in there if we only had ears to hear and respond to it. So.
I just wish I had your bladder.
I believe there's a suggestion there.
I'm usually criticized for not giving enough breaks. Not being sensitive, not being thoughtful, not caring about the people who come. There's usually a grain of truth.
I've sometimes been concerned while watching judges or magistrates in court, and how easily they seem to get irritated about the slightest thing and just get off in a huff, and everyone has to stand up and believe in the adjourned court for hours. It's not until next November or whatever. And I often wish they could be a little bit more. It seems so much about them.
Right. Yeah, the ego is they're ready to take offense.
Yeah, for the slightest.
The slightest slights.
After all,
So now we have a lot of these elements that are key ingredients for uninsultability, and probably we need to define and describe what we mean by uninsultable. Uninsultable doesn't mean you don't care or you don't give a flip, because that would be one form, but that's not a human form of uninsultability. That's just getting hard and uncaring. So what we want to do is to keep our heart still warm and compassionate and caring and able to receive information without retaliating in kind and without going into a defensive state, without going into fear or depression or going into but staying resourceful even while someone is letting me have it. And so then the qualities of how would I texture my state so that I can be open even when under attack, even legitimate attack. But illegitimate attack even more so. Because then I'm really clear, this is really about them. And it's really not about me, and I can hear that out. Because then that becomes a gift as well as it helps to save the relationship and the sets of interactions. So uninsultability, and most of us are most easily insulted about things we care about. So the more you do things that are significant and important to you, in one sense, we wire up our buttons, because every button, you care about something. And so as we unplug the buttons, and some of these pieces will be significant, and I would say starting with a good state with some good boundaries, a good sense of self, a strong sense of values and visions and hopes, and openness to being fallible, and unconditional self-esteem. So there's lots of things that we'll want to add here. You may want to start with your optimism and your resilience, and then build some things on top of that for uninsultability. If I can get over to where you guys are, I'll throw some cartoons up. And sometimes looking at the insult strategy and structure allows us to see what we need to do specifically. And what I would encourage you to do right now is make a menu list of the most important resources that you'll want to add to this mix for uninsultability. Here's Charlie Brown and Violet. Violet says the subject is closed, Charlie Brown. It simply goes without saying that you are an inferior human being. She walks off. If it goes without saying, why did you have to say it? He says. Charlie Brown gets most of it in most of these here. I was thinking about you last night, Charlie Brown. Do you have that list of your shortcomings that I gave you? Fine. Now, well, just attach this new list with some paper clips. There. And he says, stop thinking about me. He gets it here. He really gets it here. You're probably the most wishy-washy person I have ever known. You're really not much use to anyone, Charlie Brown. You're weak. You're dumb. You're boring. You're hopeless. They just stand there. Incidentally, how come I don't hear you sing anymore? Here's two of the gals in the neighborhood, and they're doing na 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 na. And Violet goes off. She's not in a very good mood, and she sees Charlie Brown. And nah to you too. Charlie Brown says, "This is a tough neighborhood. You never know when you're going to get hit by a stray nah." So there's that nastiness. Violet says, "I don't care if I ever see you again. Do you hear me?" And Linus says, "She really hurt your feelings, didn't she, Charlie Brown? I hope she didn't take all the life out of you." And he says, "No, not completely, but you can number me among the walking wounded." Here's a more subtle way to insult someone. I can't think of that word. There's one certain word that describes your personality, Charlie Brown, but I can't think what it is. He says, blah. That's it! Here's Lucy and her little brother Linus. She says, if someone close to you noticed that you had some faults, would you want them to point it out to you? He says, well, sure, I guess so. She says, then here we go. But here is uninsultability. I think this is one of my all-time favorite Charlie Brown cartoons. We're going to have a party and we're not going to invite you. That's a good idea. I think you're doing the right thing. If I had the type of personality that annoys you, it would be silly to invite me.
Right, Larry?
So here's this agreement frame. He agreed with them. That's a good idea. I think you're doing the right thing. If, subjunctive, if I have the type of personality, it would be silly. And they were trying to push those buttons, and they couldn't get those buttons pushed. And Charlie Brown has his day. So uninsultability. Let me work with somebody, and we'll do a demo, and then we'll turn you loose to go for uninsultability. Give me a couple of the triggers that would get you. The trigger. Take notes.
If that's Lucy, don't give her.
If you said anything about me personally,
It wouldn't matter.
Anything. Anything. Hair, clothes,
Yeah.
just anything.
Anything.
A lot of buttons.
Yeah.
Okay. So yesterday, or the day before, yesterday we went into the optimism one, and then the resilience. So I'd like you to start with your optimism one, me, not me, and get a real good sense of your space. And you might want to use your hands even to start to kind of get that sense of space. I've got space. Whatever comes at me doesn't have to get in unless I choose to let it in. So me, not me. And do you have that well established, well supported?
Yep.
Okay. And what we've been doing the last couple of days also is developing that sense. I've got an energy field around me so that you can feel safe, you can feel secure, you can feel protected, that whatever words come are just words. And I've got a little bit of room that I can let the words fall up on this energy field, and then I can choose, do I need that in, or are they useful, are they enhancing, are they toxic? And so that sense of space, me and not me.
Okay, that one's harder.
In this sense, being really, really clear that anything anybody says that comes out of their mouth is not you. So Tim, if you'll say a few words about her, and just notice that when his words come out, those are Tim's
What kind of words do you want, Michael?
words. Any words about her clothes?
Should they be ones with microphone?
Darn, you're getting really sharp here.
Your sweatshirt's kind of baggy.
That didn't do anything.
So notice that whatever comes out of his mouth is not you. Were those words you?
No.
Is there any way those words could be Linda?
No.
So you're so much more than words, and especially his words. So just notice that, because that's what we want to feel. Like the other day I said, look at the shoes. Is that shoe you? I mean, it's real clear. That's not me.
Right.
But what gets a little trickier is when he says Linda, but recognizing those are his words. And just imagine, just even looking around the room and recognizing anything anybody says, even when they use your name in vain, that's their words. It came out of their mouth, their mind, their heart, and it's theirs. And you have the right to choose, do I want to bring it in? Is there anything to consider? So me, not me.
That makes sense.
Okay. So when you hear Tim's voice, you know that that's Tim's voice and not me. So I think that's the first thing to do, not me, to put all that out there. And if it's not me, then it's Tim's, or it's Pascal's, or it's Russ's, or it's whoever it's coming out of, it's theirs.
Okay. I can do that.
Okay. So we start with that optimism explanatory thing, and once you push out, that's not me, then going back in, what is me? And what do I value? And what do I believe? And what am I about? So that you fill up your space with something rich and full, like your values, like your hopes, like your dreams, like your feelings, like your purposes and your intentions. You just fill all that up. So it's so full that if something does come through, it gets filtered through your values. Then you can choose, oh, this fits or this doesn't fit. This is okay, this isn't. Because once it filters through all your values, it gets filtered through your values, and only thing that will come in is what your values allows that may be valuable and significant. So you fill up that energy space, and so just your values and your vision and your beliefs and the things that you've mapped out can fill up this space and make you feel full, make you feel solid, make you feel secure. And at the same time, you can also be esteeming yourself and appreciating yourself and valuing yourself and accessing your power zone and knowing that with your power zone, all of these powers are fully fallible. They're fully fallible. So if something comes through, wouldn't you want to know something that might improve and help you to become better and more useful so that so the feedback is allowed in? Useful, accurate feedback is allowed in.
Absolutely.
Okay. And how well do you feel okay with your fallibility?
I feel completely okay with it. I'm not okay with you knowing about it.
Okay. So what happens if you give yourself permission to allow others to know that you're fallible too?
If they're okay with it, then I can do that.
Okay. But if they're not okay with it?
Then I'm not okay with it.
Okay. So what resource do you need so that you can be okay if somehow, some way, somebody finds out that you're fallible and they hate that? They're on some trip about infallibility and demanding that you be perfect and flawless and infallible about everything. What resource do you need to have for yourself so that when you look at them having that tantrum and wanting you to be perfect, wanting you to be a saint now?
I guess humor would play a big part in it, and understanding that they're infallible.
Okay.
And be a sense of or a lack of connection with them in that area.
Okay.
Just a sense.
Okay. Because is that what feels threatened? That if they do this, it feels like they're putting the relationship online?
Yes.
Okay. So what resource do you need to have so that if they choose to do that, that you can accept that that's their choice, and you can stay calm, cool, collected, compassionate?
Probably a sense of wanting them in my life but not needing them.
Okay. Wanting them but not needing. And so setting that frame, wanting but not needing, and how do you do that? And is it just part of the script in your mind? I want it but I don't need it.
I wouldn't know how else to do it.
Okay. So I want it but I don't need it. The opposite is, I will not make my life dependent upon your approval or your relationship. My life is dependent upon my values and beliefs. And I want you to be a part of the journey and go with me, but if you can't, then you can't. So that there doesn't have to be a counterattack, but just, sorry that we can't share this part. Okay. So when you give yourself those permissions and have those resources, I want it, but I don't need it.
It changes the whole thing.
Okay. So now you're okay with your fallibility. Now, if they're not, that's really their problem. And it's a form of their fallibility that they haven't even recognized. Okay. So now with that in line, let's just see how well grounded this is with all of this in mind, all these resources. Anything can push your buttons?
I don't know. Why don't you try?
Okay. So what might be a button that might be left?
I don't know. Right now, I don't feel like there's a button.
Okay. What if we called in to question your intentions? What if we think you're doing this stuttering thing, this group, just for your own ego satisfactions? What if I misread, misunderstood, and I said that? Would that push a button?
No.
Okay. Usually intention, questioning someone's intention is difficult. Is one of the things that one of the last buttons get unplugged. Because most of us, we have good intentions, we know what they are, and we want people to see them. And you start calling those into question, kind of riles us.
I see you.
Okay. Oh, you are so bad.
What if that had been somebody other than Bob?
Right now, I don't think that would have bothered me.
Do we need to test the entire room?
I had to do that.
All guys.
I had to send that signal to my
We're gonna create a line here. All you guys come.
Hey, that's the better room just across the hall from me. Want me to go get a stranger?
Yeah, go get some guy.
You can't get much stranger than this group. Look around carefully.
Tell you what, Linda, you want to trade jobs with me for 10 days? That'll test it.
You got a lot of guys.
Baseball, I believe.
A lot of guys are after Ed.
Okay, I'm cured. Are you done with me?
So how does this feel?
I feel really good.
Okay. And do you have it? Is it yours now?
I think so.
Okay. Okay.
Try me out later.
Okay. Thank you.
Well, you may really be putting the kid
We are going to actually go to the coaching groups because we set that on the plans for today rather than this one. So this would be good to do. When can we do this? We're not doing the practice groups tonight. Maybe first thing on Friday morning, just to kind of catch up and let everybody have a chance to do the uninsultability. The general pattern is we're going to metastate it by accessing, amplifying, and applying resources again and again, just adding more and more things, and constantly testing it with our triggers, however it's grounded, so that I can start mapping in my mind the structure of how I can stay focused, centered, calm, clear, caring, compassionate, true to who and what I am with my values, my vision, regardless of what happens out there. So whatever is out there is out there. And if it didn't come out of my mind, my mouth, my life, my heart, my words, then it's not mine. And then I can find out what it is, and then it can start filtering through my values. And if we have a frame of, I'm okay with feedback, I'm okay with accurate feedback, and if it's not accurate, I can just explore and find out what's going on, because it's probably about them, and then just staying really, really centered. And I'm okay with my fallibility. And being okay with our fallibility allows us to feel secure in and of ourselves so we can take risks. And then we're not operating from fear or caution or anxiety or hesitation. We can take risks and be okay with our vulnerability and our openness. And then we can choose who to open up our ego boundaries to and who to close it to. Because this does not mean that you have to be open to everybody and sharing every in-depth thing. Just share it with those who are trustworthy. And in fact, we look for people who can handle it and handle it respectfully. And if they can, we just close the boundaries and deal with it. Deal with it as we would deal with any kind of problem. And then when we close it, we don't close it for good. We just close it to that person and at that day, that time, that situation. And then we open it up to those who can handle and be respectful. And because that's what relation is.
One thing that worked for me is looking at the person very carefully and see what I don't have to do. I mean, how they manage to offend somebody, and then to look at very carefully for me not doing that. You know what I mean?
Okay.
So I am looking at it, and then I am observing, and I have to watch this very carefully so I don't do that.
Okay.
So you model it and then don't do it.
Yeah.
Model what not to do. Model what not to do to become unresourceful and ineffective.
One of the things that sometimes helps us is I want to make sure that I understood what you're saying and then give them back to that in your own words.
All right. So that's that part of information gathering. Help me to understand exactly what's going on instead of reacting. So maybe even another thing to meditate ourselves with is I don't need to react. I can respond, and I can first gather information. So there's many things that we can layer on that's going to put us in a much better place as we move through here. So uninsultability will really be customized inside of us. And if you're going to do anything effective, anything that is significant, somebody's not going to like it. And if I'm okay with not needing to please everybody, wanting to but not needing to, and have willingness to be congruent and true to my own self, then I won't be afraid of displeasure, dislike, disapproval. That approval is not that critical in how I move through life. So, uninsultability. This is one also I would suggest refresh it, and let it get more vigorous and delightful until we got a full expression of that. And what we're doing, we're unplugging the buttons. Well, every button, every emotional button that gets us to react as a semantic reaction is wired to something that we've given too much meaning to. We care too much about being right, too much about our impressions, too much about our reputations. We care too much, and most of it has to do with us, because we're not really grounded and solid within our own, and have that sense of security within our own self. Because when we look at history and the people who really accomplished a lot of things, oftentimes they started a new way of thinking, a new paradigm, with almost nobody agreeing with them. And what they were able to do was to care about it, but not put their life at that disposal, and just do what they believed was right, and just do it anyway. And so that's uninsultability. Well, we did say we were going to get into the groups of the coaches. The coaches are going to be introducing to you, those of you who will be here a week from Friday when we do our wrap-up on the Mastery Day, some of what we're going to do. And so we want to do that until 5 o'clock, 5:10, I guess now. We'll give a full 30 minutes for that. And at 5:10, we'll come back in here and we'll be doing our graduation for the trainers. And for Bob and I, this is a real honor to be able to say to them and to you that these are people that we've worked with, that we've gotten to know, that we have personal relationship with, and that for us are going to be representing neurosemantics in the world from this day forward, and part of the foundation leadership for this group, for what we're doing. We've got 50-some, and this adds up nearly to 60 trainers, and we'll hit 100, I think, by this year. And with 100 trainers, 100 people doing neurosemantics and personal genius, this is a real honor for us. We never dreamed that anything like this would happen. When we started doing all of this, it's just really begun to happen, and so we've kind of been inventing it as we go. Still inventing. We've done some inventing today for what you trainers are going to be experiencing in just a moment.
That doesn't scare you. You're in the wrong room.
If you don't feel nervous now,
We're going to catch your state.
The quality of any movement is based upon the quality of the people. The quality of any movement is based upon the character, the attitude, the skill, the knowledge. And with these people, I'm delighted, I'm honored that they will be representing neurosemantics and be doing wild and wonderful things in the field of neurosemantics, because each and every one of them has the attitude. Last year in the United States, we asked 6 different people not to come because we didn't feel they were ready. We've been very selective in it, and very conscious about that, because we want good quality people, congruent people, passionate people, respectful people, professional people. And in working with the folks that are here today, that is true for each and every one of them. And I am honored, and I'm sure Bob is well honored to have these people as neurosemantic trainers, and so we're going to induce them into the Hall of Frames. But they are here, and part of their experience is because of the whole coaching team. Stephen, Alan, Ann, I'll just go ahead and mention everybody's name, Vicki, Jermaine, Sergio, Suzanne, and Ree. And so we're going to ask them to come through the greeting line. It'll kind of be like a marriage wedding ceremony. And so we're...
I do have those at funerals too.
When your name is called, we're going to put the guys in the back row and the gals in the front row. And in just a little bit, I've asked each of them to say something about what this means to them, anything that's appropriate. Appropriate? The key word? Or inappropriate. Because after all, we do trust them. So,
Peter Kemperman.
So, by Peter Kemperman. All the way from Holland. Both Peter and Frans are in Holland and working in Holland. In fact, we're not going to give the certificates until after, a little bit later. But we'll call their names, so you'll need to call their names.
Jim Brush.
Jim Brush.
Carl Spies. Franz Nobben.
That's Shoemaker or Schumacher.
Schumacher. A winner. We've got gold medals, but they found out that they have too big of heads to put it over them. Or was it they were too small?
Becky Schumacher.
Don't do bonding yet.
Dr. Deborah Lawson.
Hey, thank you.
This one here. Great. I explain this later. But I want to give you now already.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Hey, Bob.
Take away their horns. There's nothing like putting a trainer or a neurosemanticist to the test. And so we thought we would start off that way by giving you a chance to say something to the group. And so as everybody finds a place, I'm going to provide the certificate as they come up, say a few words, and then return to your place as the group of all of those of you who win. We will go backwards from the way you came up, and so we will give Diane.
Thank you. All that meta-guessing or that knowing and all that out there has done something for my voice, so we'll give this a try. It's good to be up here. For all the wonderful people that I worked with over the last few days, played with, shared with, trained with, for our wonderful genius trainer, for all the wonderful coaches who have been very supportive, for the wonderful material that we had to work with, the wonderful knowledge that I attained from that, the amazing patterns. I'm thankful for so much, all that stuff. I'm really excited about being able to go out there and really do something with it. That knowing doing gap for me, come hell or high water, is going to be very tight. I want to thank Alan for his support in making it possible for me to be here and enjoy training with him, and look forward to the next number of days when we're together to do more training and learning, and thank you, everyone.
Anybody who doesn't know, Diane and Alan run the Canadian Institute of Neurosemantics in Toronto, and I'm looking forward to the time when they turn out their first book, The Neurosemantics of ADD, which should be late this summer.
We write a little slower than you.
They write it shorter first.
That's in both French and English, right?
French and English. All the way from Australia through Florida and through some other places in the United States, Deborah, and this is yours.
Well, when Michael told us we were going to say a few words, which you would expect, my first thought was, oh, I better plan it, and what am I going to say? And I decided to not do that, because the challenge is to be able to just be in front of the group and be congruent and connected and playful. And so here we are. And I came here not really knowing what to expect and not really even knowing why I was considering being a trainer. It kind of came on suddenly, but now that I've done it, I'm glad I did, and I came here totally trusting that I would get what I needed, and I have. Thank you. Through the tears and the fears and all. And I'd like to invite all of you to come join us in Australia. The planes do go both ways, and it would be great to have you there. Thank you.
Becky has been with us for a couple of years now, originally from Grand Junction, or at least you were here for a while, and now in the great state of Minnesota.
Well, Michael, I thought this was optional. Since going through the training, I just love public speaking. So, I highly recommend it to all of you.
Franz?
Yes.
All the way up.
Wow, great. This was where I came from. No. I like having it, but that was not the main purpose. I know his stuff already for 4 years, I presume. The first books I bought from you on the internet. I was enthusiastic, but I really didn't understood it quite well. There was an opportunity, Jermaine caused that. And February, first meet each other in Brussels. And I was so enthusiastic about that. I thought, that should be more. Go for it. So I decided to be here. That's just one step. The next step is cooperation with Jermaine, doing the thing in Western Europe, the Saints Institute, and contributions to everything that's happening in the neurosemantics. I had a present. I will explain it later because it has something to do with you. Hey, thank you all. It was a pleasure meeting you. You helped me through things. I could be enthusiastic, be myself. Wow, great. Thank you.
And from South Africa via Nigeria.
What really excited myself and Thomas about coming to this course is we're hopelessly computer geeks, so we've been doing that for quite a while. And Michael's really teaching us to see the brain as a system, to see the brain as something we can play with and we can have fun with, and that's been very exciting. As I was telling Becky a little earlier, imagine the impact if all of us go out and share neurosemantics with just 5 people we know, and maybe take just 3 good patterns from personal genius, maybe dragon slaying, maybe the power zone, and maybe the genius state, and think of the effect that would have on just 5 close friends. And without sounding like an Amway spokesman, those 5 people. And that's what impressed me. As I've been chatting to a couple of you, I mean, think about the impact we can make if we just share just some really good principles with those close to us and just let that expand. So I'm looking forward to working with all of you. I don't love you with every fibre in my being, and I'll stay in touch, but we hope to be in touch in terms of the back-end computer systems, making sure that you're all connected, making sure that you get it hot off the press, you get it as soon as Michael does that. So Scream, we're here to support each other, and I'm honestly proud to be part of a really good community. I feel content here, I feel secure here, I feel challenged here, I feel inspired here, and this is a place where I want to stay in terms of the neurosemantic community, so thanks very much.
And Jim Brett.
Well, like my colleagues, I first of all want to thank Michael and Bob and the entire staff and all of you who represent the seedlings in this great movement. And I'd like to take you to 3 phases of human evolution. First one is about 4 billion years ago, plus or minus change. And at that point in time, what I'd like you to think about is a primal soup, where we're all floating around and we probably have the dimensionality of ping pong balls, and we're staring into the sun. And our survival depends on whether we can find shade, and if not, we simply pop. We're no longer single-celled creatures. And one individual figures out how to hold its breath when it sinks to the bottom, and it finds a way to survive. And a few million years later, all of a sudden we have the capability of cleaning our environment. Now I'd like to move ahead quickly to 175 million years ago. 175 million years ago, the planet was populated by a couple of lookalikes as far as humans are concerned. One was Cro-Magnon, the other was Neanderthal. One survived and the other didn't. And the interesting thing about this is about 97% of all primates no longer exist on the planet. So we were at a crucial stage. I mean, this was a decision point. We had to make a decision about what was going on. And Cro-Magnon, he didn't make it. Neanderthal changed his diet. In the process of changing his diet, he found some sort of nutrition that ultimately moved up into his brain and allowed his frontal lobes to develop.
Fish.
And at that point in time, man had just survived another huge challenge. Man became the individual that could think. And so let's move quickly on to another point. Now we have thinking man. He's been able to survive. He's been able to control his environment. He's become tribal. He's been able to plan. And let's take it to July 3rd, 2002. In the United States, we now have a society that is the sickest society in the world. You know, we live much longer, but we live miserably. And 90% of all the illnesses are created in our heads. So you all, and my colleagues, of course, have an opportunity to change the way the world moves. I don't want to put the burden on you. The survival of the primate species is all in your hands. But I'll tell you what, I hope you help as many people as you can. Thank you.
Finally, and tallest. Peter.
Well,
Thank you very much, everybody, and I'm really proud of this. Still used to. It means something for me because I want to give it back for my father. My father died 5 years ago, and didn't have the opportunity to be, knowing this, that I'm doing this, because we forget sometimes our past, where we are coming from. Because when I was still part of my dad, at that moment, with my mother, we start, and suddenly, you get a time where you are out there with others, same as at that moment, all say the parts with you, and you look at the others at that moment, and you recognize you got power. You got a lot of power inside yourself already when you started there. As part of my father when he went away. So knowing that I had so much power in me, that created already a state in me at that moment that brought me and it gives me also a connection with the world like today. The world connection started at that moment for me, and out there the world I recognized my intention. So my intentions were growing and growing and growing. It took quite a while, but during this week with Michael, these fantastic people, Bob, and you all, I understand that everything is inside yourself. That's the only state you can control. You can't control anybody else, only yourself. So, knowing that from the start on, the moments, and then outside in the world, you got these intentions and meanings. And after those meanings, you know you have to do it on yourself, being yourself. And this process out of my father, meeting the egg, the whole funnel which I went through, that was a top swim.
That's the Matrix?
That's the Matrix. 7 months. Well, thank you very much, folks. Love to be here, and really pleased to be connected. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Well, this evening we're going to have a party in celebration of the neurosemantic trainers, and they'll be at our home at 6:30 this evening, and we've got some dinner and food. What?
At the Metacastle.
At the Metacastle.
And we've got one request of the trainers, and that is to relax, have fun, and stay the hell out of the kitchen.
They haven't finished with you yet.
My prediction is that we're going to see some great things coming from these people in the years to come, books, patterns, and just doing great things. And so, in honor of them, we celebrate who they are, what they've been through, and what they're going to be doing as neurosemanticists. Thank you.